Good morning, everybody. As we go to the this wonderful class, I hope you have the book. To those that need a book, well, for this book, I think it's coming to an end, but at least you should get the book for next class if you're on Zoom. So call up the office 487-2934, and they'll send you a book so that you can have it in your home and you can follow the class, because there's a lot of different texts that are brought down in this class that is only in the book. I can tell you the verse, and you can find the verse in the Chumash. It'll be difficult for me to tell you all the texts over here that you don't have in front of you. Okay, this Parsha, the Rebbe is going to teach a very simple lesson over here. And the class is called, officially, it's called Do Not Negotiate. Sometimes it's best not to answer at all. And that's the class, and that's really the lesson. Based on the ethics of our father, it says, Siyag lachochma shtika. Sometimes the best answer is silence. Whereas the Mishnah says, don't argue with somebody that is angry. The best thing is to not argue with them, but actually to walk away from the situation and not to have any deep arguments. And the Rebbe, through a very complex story that happens at the end of the Parsha, that says we can learn from this, we can all learn from this lesson of how to respond to an argument, whether it's an argument with somebody else or whether it's an argument from one that has with himself. Sometimes a person can have his own arguments, and how does he respond to an argument? So let's go to the story. The story that you have in your text number 1, page 176. If you don't have a book, you can go to the book of Numbers, the Parsha, chapter 25, verse number 1. That is actually at the end of the Parsha. Parsha, we have a whole story of Balak and Bilam. Balak, king of Moab, is afraid of the advancement of the Jews to his country. He hires a prophet of doom, a person that knows how to curse and how to bring nations down and how to win wars not through tactical measures of war, but actually through cursing and through the spiritual side of things. And he is hired by Balak, who's the king, and he comes down, and it's a beautiful story how he actually blesses the Jews, etc., etc. And a lot of famous sayings that come out of Bilam, Matova Lecha Yaakov, we say every day in our davening. How beautiful are the tents of Jacob, the dwellings of the Jews, etc. It's beautiful. It was very poetic. Bilam was very poetic. After the story, Bilam is disgraced by Balak. Balak, sends him packing and tells him to go home. And Bilam's last statements, he says, the only thing I can tell you is, forget about cursing the Jews, I can't do that. But I can tell you, I can give you a tactical way to get the Jews, and I know what's going to anger God, and that is you should create immorality, try to create them, try to get them to become immoral, try to get the Jews, involved in the customs because now they were living in the cities. They're living near Moab, try to get them to get involved in immorality, prostitution, etc. Try to get them motivated in that area, and you'll see you might have success. You'll be able to, you'll be able to get the fringes, so to say. You'll be able to draw in some people. You'll be able to draw in some people, and that will anger God, because God, comes to immorality, he has an issue with immorality, right? We know from the story of the Mabel, it was for immorality, and for idol worship and for stealing, etc. He doesn't like this kind of stuff. And get the Jews involved. And that's what they did. They took his advice. And that's how we come to the story of the end of the portion. They took his advice and they influenced, one tribe got involved in this whole situation. The tribe of Shimon, who was living right there. They got involved in this whole situation. We know that the Torah said a plague came about. And from this tribe itself, 24 or 30,000 people died of the plague from this tribe itself, the tribe of Shimon. So they were affected by it. Bilam ultimately gave them some advice and to be able to affect the Jewish people. But the Torah ends off with the story of the leader of the tribe of Shimon. So let's go to it. We'll just read it a little bit, and we'll go to really the behind the story to understand the story. Verse the text number again. Your text number 1. If you don't have a book, open up a Chumash. In Numbers chapter 25, verse number 1. Israel was living in Shittim, and the people began to engage in licentious, right? They started to play around.
Licentiousness.
They started to, in Hebrew. Hanky-panky, right? Now, Hebrew is liznais, to do znus, to do immoral acts, with the daughters of Moav. They invited the people to the feast, offering their gods, and ultimately one thing led to another, and the people ate, and they prostrated themselves to their gods. And that's what happened. Now you had the two situations over here already, the concept of immoral acts, and ultimately the concept of idol worship, which usually one thing came to the other and created this imbalance. And Israel became attached to Baal Per, which was then the idol of this area, and the wrath of God was inflamed against Israel. So that was Bilam's advice, and it worked. God said to Moshe, take all the leaders of the people and hang those who have sinned before God, facing the sun, so that the flame wrath of God may withdraw from Israel. Moshe said to the judge of Israel, each of you kill his men who have become attached to Baal Per. And then the Torah ends off, it says as follows. Behold, one man of Israel came out. He brought a Midianite woman near to his brethren before the eyes of Moshe and before the eyes of all the Jewish people. And they were weeping at the tent of meeting door. Pinchas. So he came out with this girl, a Midianite girl, as you'll soon see what is the meaning of the story and what really happened. Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen, saw this, and he rose from the community, and he took a spear in his hand. He went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced them both, the Israelite man and the woman, through her stomach. The plague against the Israel ceased. Okay? Those who died in the plague were 24,000. And I said, those are the 24,000 mainly for the tribe of Shimon, because we know that because you go to the counting of Shimon in later on in the book of Numbers, you'll see the difference between the counting in the beginning of the book of Numbers and the counting in the end of the book of Numbers. They're missing this 24,000 people. So their numbers went down by 24,000 because this tribe, the tribe of Shimon, was the main tribe who were affected by this situation. So what was the story? What was the story of this guy, Zimri? We know the name. The name is Zimri. Zimri. What happened? What was Zimri? Zimri came in front of the tribe, right? Came in front of Moses and brought this Midianite woman. He brought a Midianite woman. And he came to Moshe Rabbeinu. You don't see anything that Moshe Rabbeinu responds to whatever the Zimri wanted to say or said. Moshe Rabbeinu was silent in this whole story, which is an interesting interesting because if you go to the story, here you have the Talmud, the Gemara in text number 2a. You don't have the book, you have to open up a Talmud Sanhedrin, page 82. You have a Talmud at home. So the Talmud says, the Medrash says, the Talmud tells you the background of the story. So what's the background of the story? What did Zimri do? Text number 2a, page 178 in your book. What did Zimri do? He arose, gathered 24,000 of Israel, his own tribe, and went to Cosby, the princess of Midian, and said to her, I want a relationship with you. She said to him, I'm the daughter of a king. And so my father commanded me, submit only to the greatest of them. Don't, because that was the deal. That was Bilam's idea. He told the Sari Midian and Moav, he told them, go out and send your daughters. Send them out to the Jewish people. So she said, I'm not submitting to anybody, schlepper. I'm submitting to Kanaka. He told her, I'm too, don't worry, Zimri, I'm the tribe, I'm the head of the tribe of Shimon. Moreover, I have a greater than Moshe, for I am the second of the womb, meaning I descend from Shimon, the second son of Jacob, while Moses comes from the third son of Jacob. So I'm a big Kanaka. If you're looking for a Kanaka, you got it. You got the guy. So she said, fine. I got a Kanaka. I got the big guy. Got the kahuns. So Zimri grabbed her and brought her to Moshe and said, son of Amram. Spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu. We're holding already. Moshe Rabbeinu is 120 years old at this time. He says, son of Amram, is this woman forbidden or permitted? Am I allowed to marry her? Am I allowed to marry this woman? And if you say she is forbidden, who permitted you to marry the daughter of Jethro? Jethro's daughter was a Midianite. Like Tzipora was a Midianite. So, I'm asking you, Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm asking Moshe Rabbeinu openly and Moshe Rabbeinu himself, am I allowed to have a relationship with this woman, this Midianite woman? If you say no, then how'd you marry Tzipora? How'd you marry this Midianite woman? For a moment, it eluded Moshe to answer the question. It's a good question. Moshe, so to say, was silent. Didn't answer anything. When Moshe Rabbeinu was, so to say, silent, right? So that's why the pasuk says everybody started to cry. They realized that Moshe Rabbeinu was seemingly, he was stuck for an answer. Right? All the leaders bawled in their weeping. And this explains what's written, and they wept at the tent of the meeting door. And it's written, that's why the next thing that happens is Pinchas. Pinchas stands up and says, this is the law. Pinchas, who is a nephew of Moshe Rabbeinu, he's a great nephew, because Pinchas ben Elazar, ben Aaron HaKohen, Pinchas is the grandson of Aaron, which is a great nephew of Moshe Rabbeinu. So Pinchas stands up and does what he does. And he stops the plague. Pinchas. So why was Moshe silent? Why suddenly Moshe Rabbeinu suddenly lost for words? A man who lived by the words, spoke the words of God, taught the Jewish people the entire Torah. Suddenly, we need his great nephew to stand up. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu respond to Pinchas? It's a good question. The question's a good question. Were you allowed to marry this woman? If I'm not allowed to marry this woman, so how did you marry this woman? So Rashi, look in text number 2b, because really it doesn't make sense, this question, because we're talking about two different times in history, right? Moshe Rabbeinu married Tzipora before the giving of the Torah. This story happened after the giving of the Torah. So really, what's the question? Zimi's question is really not a question. They were right. So first of all, who permitted the daughter to gesture to you? Moshe had married before Matan Sinai, before the giving of the Torah. So what is the question? What is Zimi's question? The Torah prohibits of marrying Torah prohibit a Jew to marry a non-Jew after the giving of the Torah, not before the giving of the Torah. So what's his question? And when the Torah was given, they were all non-Jews who entered into the general framework of mitzvahs together. So therefore, the truth is, before the giving of the Torah, that's why they all converted. The truth is, in essence, both the Jews converted into Judaism. They were brought into the religion, so to say, into Yiddishkeit by Matan Torah, by the giving of the Torah. So that's why, in essence, they became a new entity at the giving of the Torah. That's what happened. So so really that's the answer. That's the simple answer. That's Moshe Rabbeinu could have said a simple answer. Right, it was grandfathered in. No, it was not grandfathered in. It's not the concept of grandfathered in. Yeah, you're right. It's not grandfathered because they converted. They all converted. So therefore, there was no law. There was no law prohibiting Moshe from marrying a Midianite woman at the time that he married this Midianite woman. So and Tzipora entered with them. So Tzipora became part of the Jewish nation when the Jewish people was given the Torah. As did many converts from mixed multitudes. That's what happened. We know that there were thousands of Egyptians that went with them. All became part of the Jewish nation. They converted at the giving of the Torah. So that's it. So what is Pinchas coming to Moshe Rabbeinu with this situation? So that's why the question is asked in text number 3 on page 180. The Yalkut Ruveni, it's a Medrash. He says he should have at least have answered Zimri. He could have said halacha came into force when the Torah was given, or I converted her. Then perhaps Zimri would have responded and returned in tshuva, and God accepts all returnees. Why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu respond to that? Why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu tell Pinchas, relax? You have a good question. You're challenging me. You're right. You're right. How do I marry her? My answer is because I married her before the giving of the Torah. When the Torah was given, she converted, like all other people that converted at the giving of the Torah. And now I'm allowed to marry her. I'm allowed to be married to her. Yeah. So why didn't he do that? Anybody that knows this, it's a simple answer. It's not, you don't have to be Moshe Rabbeinu to come up with this answer. It's a very simple answer. So we must say that Zimri knew this answer. I could have given you the answer without knowing this. I would have given you the same answer. Like how did Jacob marry two sisters? It was before the giving of the Torah. After the giving of the Torah, you can't marry two sisters. How did Amram marry his wife, who was his aunt? Because it's before the giving of the Torah. And before the giving of the Torah, you can marry your aunt. After giving the Torah, you can't marry your two sisters, and you can't marry your aunt, etc., etc. Right? It's a simple answer. He could have given Zimri, and Zimri would have hopefully understood that is not a question. You can't ask a stupid question. So we must say that Zimri knew that the Tzipora, Moshe Rabbeinu's wife, converted. He knew that. must say he knew that. There must be something else that he was bothered. We have to go a little bit more deeper. There must have been something else that bothered him. And some of Farshim holds that what bothered him was that Moshe Rabbeinu was a kohen. Moshe Rabbeinu was a kohen. He was not only a kohen for a certain amount of time, he was a kohen gadol. He was the high priest. And now we have a bigger problem. Because Moshe Rabbeinu, as a kohen gadol, cannot be married to a convert. Right? You have learned in the Gemara. Cannot be married to a convert. So now that's the problem. No, but Lepel now he became the. So the question is, so this was the halacha question. If a kohen gadol, if a regular kohen married, a regular kohen can't marry a convert either. But if a regular kohen married a divorce, not a divorce, he can't marry a divorcee either. He married a widow, right? And now he's becoming the kohen gadol. What does he do? Does he have to get divorced? He married this widow when he was a regular kohen, which he's allowed to marry a widow. A kohen can marry a widow. But now he's becoming the kohen gadol. So is it grandfathered in, as you called it before? Or no, he has to get divorced from her because he cannot, as a kohen gadol, he cannot be married to a divorcee.
He has to kill her.
No, we don't go that far. Question is, you have to divorce her. So let's go into that concept, right? We're going to a little deeper into Moshe's marriage to Tzipora, because that was Zimri's challenge. Zimri's challenge was Moshe Rabbeinu. Are you allowed to be married to Tzipora? Are you allowed to be married to her or not?
Indicated that Moses was the end of his lifespan. He was 120 years.
Correct.
And all this was done, I'm assuming, years and years and years ago. So why would he bring up something that really isn't relevant that's coming up?
No, it's relevant to him. To him. It was relevant to him.
He wanted the party.
He wanted dust like, if you can be married to her, I can be married to her. It was relevant. He wanted to have a relationship. They were married to her, whatever. He wanted to.
Deliberately. He wasn't doing it.
He was doing deliberately. Correct. Out of spite.
Right.
Correct. He was doing it out of spite.
But it wasn't circumstance. So why create the circumstance?
Okay, we'll see. Let's see. Let's first see. Let's first get to what his challenge was. We're trying to figure out his challenge. Right? So let's go to the law. The law in text number 4 is Maimonides, which Maimonides, again, is the one that codified every law in the Torah. That's why when you want to know Jewish law in any aspect, you need to go to Maimonides. Because if you go to Shulchan Aruch doesn't always bring down every Jewish law. The only Jew bring down law that is pertain to situations that are happening now. Maimonides tells you every law. And he tells you even this law, because today, what is this law today? We don't have a Kohanim, so it's not important for Shulchan Aruch, code of Jewish law, for this law. You have to go to Maimonides. And he says a woman who converted, who was free from slavery, even if she converted or was freed when she was under 3 years of age, being that she's not the daughter of Israel, she's forbidden from marrying a Kohen, right? If you learn the Gemara, right, we've learned this, right? A Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee, a convert, right? Or a woman that was in slavery, okay? Or a woman that was, was captive also. Same problem, okay? So a Kohen needs to cannot marry these kind of women. Why? Go to God. That's, okay, don't attack me. But that's the law. A Kohen can only marry a Jewish woman that has a lineage, that has a clear lineage. Okay? Yichus, what's called in Yiddish. yichasi. They have a lineage. Okay? We know where she comes from. A kohen can only marry such a woman. A kohen, we know that she's not divorced. We know that she's never been converted, and that law still today. A kohen cannot marry a convert. Kohen cannot marry a divorced woman. Okay, that's still today. That's the law. That's the law. So now the question is, the kohen gadol is not allowed to marry, right? The kohen is not allowed to marry a convert. So Moshe Rabbeinu was not a kohen, but so he doesn't have that problem. Aaron has the problem. Moshe Rabbeinu was a Levi. A Levi can marry a convert. A lady can marry a divorcee. It doesn't have that issue if you're a Levi. The kohen has the issue. So what's the problem? What does do with Moshe Rabbeinu? He can marry a convert. So what's the problem? What's his problem? So therefore, the Gemara in Zvachim says as follows. Rav said, text number 5. Rav said, Moshe, our teacher, was a high priest and would receive a share in the offering consecrated to heavens. As it said, it was Moshe's portion of the ram in the inauguration. Priesthood only expired for Moshe's descendants, as it says, but as for Moshe, the man of God, his sons are named amongst the tribe of Levi. Yet it also says Moshe and Aaron amongst his priests, and Shmuel amongst those that call his name. So we see in the Torah in Tehillim it says Moshe ba'arim b'kayanov. So in the Torah we consider Moshe Rabbeinu as a priest. So now the question is, how does Moshe Rabbeinu, who's considered a priest, marry a convert? Cohen is a priest. If Moshe Rabbeinu is considered a priest, so how does Moshe Rabbeinu marry a convert? Now we have a problem. So the answer is, the grandfather didn't answer. Yes, that's the answer. That's the Gemara answer. This is not my question. This is a question Talmud's bothered by. And the Gemara answers the question. And the Gemara says as follows. Is a priest, text number 6, is a priest who is betrothed to a widow and was appointed to be the high priest, he may marry because he's betrothed to her already. Betrothed means marriage already. Okay, in the times of the Talmud, betrothed was the first step of marriage, not engaged. Engagement is not betrothed. Okay, there was an incident of Yeshua ben Gamla. The Gemara says there's a story of Yeshua ben Gamla who betrothed Martha bat Beitis, who was a widow, because a kohen can marry a widow. And the king, after he was betrothed to her, the king appointed him as the high priest. And yet he still married her. So you see that if it's grandfathered in, that means if he started the relationship in the right way, even though at this present time we have a problem, but it's grandfathered in. So Moshe Rabbeinu, that's the answer. Moshe Rabbeinu was a kohen. Moshe Rabbeinu was a kohen. And he wasn't, if he would have become a kohen and then Tzipora would have converted, it would be a problem in Jewish law, even for Moshe Rabbeinu. But now that he married her before he was a kohen, right? He was a regular Jew. He was a regular Israel, Levi, before he became the story of him becoming a kohen. So he was married to her before they came to Egypt. He was married to her. He had 2 children with her. And now he became a kohen. So since he was married to her and he became the kohen gadol, he can continue to stay married to her. Grandfathered in, like you said before. So even if you're going to go into the deeper challenge of Zimri, that how as you as a Kohen, he was for a time a Kohen Gadol, how are you as a Kohen marrying, but it doesn't make difference, a convert, a Kohen, regular Kohen is not a married convert either. So even you as a Kohen, How are you marrying a convert? She's a wonderful girl, but she's a convert, and a kohen is not a married convert. But Moshe Rabbeinu has the answer to that question too. Moshe Rabbeinu could have answered him. You're right. A kohen is not a married convert, but I'm grandfathered in. Because when I married her, I was allowed to marry her. When I married her, I wasn't a kohen. I was a regular Levite. And a Levite can marry a convert. And therefore, now that I became a kohen, doesn't force me to divorce her. I can stay married. So then the question is even bothered more. Why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu respond? Why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu respond? And we see that Mishrabi, that's why the Jewish people started to cry, because Mishrabi, the Jewish people knew the answer to this question. It was a simple question that deserved a simple answer. So here the Rebbe answers the question. And we're going to go to text number 7. If you don't have the book, listen into this answer. And this is the Rebbe's answer, on text number 7, page number 184. The Rebbe's answer is, we do not always seek to answer the question of others. Sometimes their question can be so impertinent, right? Impertinent.
Fresh.
What?
Like fresh. Impertinent.
Not relevant.
Not relevant.
As to make a Midianite seem permitted. When the other person honestly intends for the sake of heaven, we must answer even a fool according to their foolishness. But if the other person poses a question in Torah terms with the intention of permitting what Torah forbids, we must take an approach: do not answer a fool according to their foolishness. Victory is achieved over such an opponent not by engaging in rational debate, but by dispelling logic, by dispelling logic-defying strength. Shtika. If a person wants to laugh, his question is a question that's an easy question, but he wants to undermine the concept. In essence, he's coming here to laugh at Moshe Rabbeinu, to which every Jew could have answered this question, but Moshe Rabbeinu understood that the question was not a question of a halachic concept. The question was a question to undermine the concept, thus to undermine the concept. So as the verse says, so say silence to the fool. Here is your answer. My silence is my answer. I say this, that when I started off the class, that this way of learning, we're going to go a little bit more, this way of this answer, this simple answer, because it's a simple question, and there's a simple answer, and the answer is silence, is not only concerning somebody else, but even to yourself. Sometimes you have to yourself foolish questions. You know the question is not there because you're trying to understand the law. The question is there thus to undermine the concept. Is to be the scoffer, to be the laugher, to be the one who tries to undermine the concept. He's not interested. I'm not interested in the logic. I'm interested in just to diminish the concept. And therefore it says in Proverbs, text number 9, do not answer a fool according to his or her folly, lest you become like them. Answer a fool according to their folly, lest they be wise in their sight. Now, this is two verses that these two verses alone, some people laughed at Proverbs. They said Proverbs is a book of you'd see me like book of statements that are contradicting. So if you take these two verses itself, one after the other verse, it's a verse from Proverbs chapter 26, verse 4 and 5. What is the meaning of the verse? It sounds like it's stupid. It sounds stupid in its contradiction. One says, don't answer the fool. The other says, answer the fool. So should you answer the fool or shouldn't you answer the fool? So the Gemara was bothered with a lot of verses in Proverbs that seems very, I don't know the right word, very crazy verses in Proverbs. The Gemara says in text number 10a, they sought to suppress the book of Proverbs because the statements contradict each other. If you look at the book of Proverbs, like some of them, like they're very contradicting in their verses. They sound a little foolish. And what was the statement that contradict one another? It's written, answer not a fool according to its folly. And it's written, answer the fool according to their folly. So what do you do? Sounds like contradiction, like Shlomo Melech is talking in rhyme. So there were those who wanted to hide the book. He said, listen, people are going to take this book and they're going to they'll make a joke of the Torah. They'll make a joke of all the books and say, look, the book talks in crazy kind of verses. But we know that they didn't. They put Proverbs as part of Torah. Mishlei, they put it as part of Tanakh. So Rashi is bothered by that. And Rashi says, the idea contained in these two verses is explicit within them. Do not answer him or her. Do not answer him or her in a matter when answering will only bring you down to their level. Don't answer a fool to act like a fool. Don't answer the fool and become a fool. Realize who's answering why they're asking the question. If they're asking the question to be foolish, don't answer the question. Don't get into the bait of foolishness. Answer a fool in a manner where if you do not answer them, they will be wise in their own eyes. That means answer the fool if you can rectify the fool. Right? If you can help the fool. That means if the fool is asking a foolish question, but there's some good in this situation, it's not totally foolish, right? Because it can be a stupid no, like you tell any person, no question is foolish. Right? Because if you're going to tell a person, you tell a person the foolish question, he might never ask a question again. So you have to know when to answer the fool. If the fool is asking a question because he wants the concept of foolishness, don't answer the fool. But if the fool wants to become unfoolish, even if that's why there's no question that is foolish, because in essence, what Rashi is telling is the way the question is asked. You have to know the way the question is asked. If the question is, it might be a foolish question, but if it's asked to learn, then it's not a foolish question. If it's asked just to make a joke of the subject, don't answer the question. Because you're going to become foolish. You're going to roll into, you're just going to prove him. Start arguing him, show more that it's that there's a problem with the question.
I always have questions when I go to the Torah or the Gemara.
Right.
There's so many contradictions.
Right. So that's the thing. But okay, that's good. Somebody who wants to learn, you cannot be embarrassed to ask a question. And a person who's nervous cannot be a teacher. Because if you're a good teacher and you have in front of you a student that's asking a foolish question, to say it's a foolish question is foolish. Because there's no foolish question. If the student's asking a question because he wants to comprehend the contradiction, he can't understand the differences, so that's understandable. You should answer the question, because by saying it's foolish, that would be terrible to do. Yeah, but if you have in front of you a student that wants to laugh at everything, because he wants to undermine the teaching, he wants to undermine the concept, then don't answer such a student. Then just move on, because you're just going to get involved in more foolishness. So therefore, as I said, you can bring it to yourself, this concept. Text 11. When the evil inclination comes, namely the heretic, to seduce a person, right? The evil, when my own evil inclination comes to challenge me with his or her deceitful claims, the verse says, don't answer a fool according to their folly. Don't respond to your animalistic soul. He's not interested in the subject. Your Yetzer Hara is not interested in the subject. He's interested to push you away from the subject. That's his point. His point is not, my evil inclination doesn't want to learn the subject. He wants to get you off the subject. That's his agenda. So why are you answering him? That's why the best thing is to tell Yetzer Hara, you learned that in Tanya, not now. I'll talk to you later. I'm too busy now. Because you're not interested in an answer. You're interested in getting me off the subject. You're interested in being foolish. Not that you're interested, I should have an argue with you why I should get involved in this issue or not get involved in this issue. Your objective is not to become smarter. Your objective is to get off the subject. And that's why you have sometimes students in front of you, they're trying to get off the subject. They're trying to make fun of the subject. So just get off the subject. It's a foolish subject. Right? Like they wanted to hide the Mishlei because it sounds contradictory. So why put it in the book? Why? Because there's going to be some people who are going to laugh. Some people are going to say, they'll use it out for negative. That's why. No, just don't respond to such kind of people. You're right. You find the Mishlei, you find the Torah, you find in the Torah itself contradicting verses. You find the Gemara, a lot of contradicting concepts. So what? That's the point. When you don't have contradiction, you don't have knowledge. You don't have the capability to understand the difference between contradiction. And go learn. I know it's difficult. But just the opposite. When there is contradiction, then you have to keep on the subject. You have to keep on the situation, not to run away from the situation because it's contradiction, especially intellectual contradiction. We're not talking about intellectual contradiction is beautiful. It brings about in your mind two concepts that now you can decipher and hopefully work it out in your mind how they're not contradicting. So that's the beauty of the verse itself. You have two verses contradicting. Come Rashi, it says, work it out. Don't just run away from Mishlei because you find contradicting verses. Work it out. You give an interpretation to the contradiction. Don't run away from the verse. Huh?
When I have questions, your answer is
you're right. Sometimes I don't have an answer. Sometimes I don't have an answer. You got to go to the book. Or what I tell you. You're right. Not everything is answerable. Not everything is answerable. You learn Gemara, for example, you're starting to learn Gemara. When you learn Gemara, you'll see that the Gemara always goes to the verse. What does the Gemara mean? That's what the verse says. You can't argue with the verse. I mean, you can argue, but the verse is the verse. So we can argue in the intellectual concept of the verse, but you can't argue with the verse. So says the verse. You might agree with it, you might not agree with it, but that's what the verse says. You don't have to agree with the verse. You don't have to agree. You have to follow the verse. You don't have to agree with the verse, right? You have to follow the verse. Right? Yeah, you have to follow the verse. That's what the verse says. So I could say a kohen can't marry a divorcee. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that, especially you're a kohen, right? That's unfair. It sounds unfair. I can't marry this person. I can't marry that person. I can't. But that's what the verse says. What should I do? You can't argue with the verse. We can argue, we can philosophize, and we can ultimately you got to go to the verse. So says the verse. If you have any complaints, you have to ask God, why a kohen? Why did he command a kohen not to marry a divorcee or a convert? So they know in marriage in the Jewish nation is tough on its own. Now you take a kohen, he cannot marry this person, and he has to chop off his list a lot of people. And if he's a kohen gadol, whoa, he mamish has to. Has to be very selective.
Yeah, it makes sense because if you're a Kohen gadol, then you should be held to a higher esteem. Because
yeah, but Moshe Rabbeinu could do anything. He's Moshe Rabbeinu, and he can marry a divorcee, and he can marry a convert, and he can marry anybody he wants to marry. But Aaron, who's his brother, who's a kohen gadol, bingo, he's out of. He can't marry. He can't marry a divorcee. So you can imagine if Aaron lost his wife and he's 100 years old, who's he marrying? And that's a big problem with Kohanim today, even today, right? You have a kohen that loses his wife for whatever reason at 60, 70 years old. Who can he marry? Can't marry a divorcee. He only can marry a widower. He can't marry, or a virgin. Okay, so he's very limited. He's very and I know Kohanim that are like this. It's a very you have a very narrow. That's why I tell Kohanim never get divorced. No, because it's very difficult. If you get divorced now, you're 60 years old, 50, whatever age, 40. Now your window is your opening is narrow. You can't just marry everybody. You just can't. You have to marry can't marry a divorcee. You can't marry a convert. You only can marry a virgin, a person that never got married before, or a person that is a widow. So that's a very narrow group. So it's not an easy thing. It's not. I know a lot of Kohanim, and I feel bad for them, but I do. But what do? You got to go to the verse. I'm not God, and God said, even though what's today a kohen, right? What's today a kohen? He's there's no Beis Hamikdash. There's no temple. He's not working in the temple, so he's like a regular guy, really. But he's not. He's not a regular guy. That's it.
But it's only the lineage, not the position.
No, it's no position, it's lineage. He's a kohen. That's it. And that's it. He's stuck in that situation. I cannot help him. I can't help him in that situation. So it's a problem until today. So ultimately, you got to go to the verse. We have to even today go to the verse. So it says in the Torah. You cannot. I feel bad for you, but that's what you have to deal with as a kohen. So the truth is, the same thing that you realize this challenge of a kohen or whatever is really what we go through anyway in our lives, right? Why do we have to do this, right? The Yetzer Hara comes and tells you, why do you got to do this? It's not fair. The other guys are having a good time. Why can't I have a good time? Why do I have to go through all these things, right? Oh, because you're Jewish. Oh, does the Torah say so? Where? Show me the verse. We struggle with this in our own lives. We do, right? And that's the Yetzer Hara coming to you and telling you, listen, okay, you're Jewish, but you can get around it. So figure out how to get around it, right? So what's the best argument? Is to walk away, because my Yetzer Hara is not interested in dialogue. He's interested in getting me out of the subject. He's the fool. He's like the student who's not interested in asking the question because he wants to understand. He just wants to laugh at the subject. And that's what we have to understand the difference. Laughing at the subject, challenging the subject, or challenging the knowledge. Understand? Are we trying to just laugh at the subject, knock off the subject, or we're trying to comprehend? Moshe Rabbeinu understood that Pinchas was basically not interested in dialogue. He knew the answers. Any answer he'd give him, he knew already. There was no secrets over here. Everybody knew this answer. You go to any 5-year-old kid that learns Talmud, he'll know the answer. We're talking about these Jews who are learning already 40 years. They knew all the answers. No secrets over there. He was not looking for an answer. He was basically not looking for an answer. He was looking just to diminish the subject, the whole concept.
Can I ask a question?
Undermine the subject, undermine the concept.
Undermine
The concept.
not
Even Moses, even Moses himself undermined, because Moses was a teacher at that time. He was a leader. So you underline the teacher, and you therefore the whole subject, the teacher, you undermine the teacher, you undermine the subject. And that was his agenda. And Moshe Rabbeinu realized that, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu responded nothing. Unresponsive.
I have a question, Rabbi.
Yes.
You lost me when you said he isn't a Kohen, Rabbi. I mean, Moshe was not a Kohen.
Moshe was a Kohen.
So
it's considered a Kohen. He was considered a Kohen.
Where is the document? I mean, where is the verse?
The verse. He gave a verse. He gave the verse. He gave the verse. No, he gave a verse. He gave a verse. There's a verse in Tillim. He gave the verse. The verse says, Moshe va'Aaron b'kayanov. In Tillim chapter 99, verse number 6.
So
in this book, it's text number 5. Moshe va'Aaron b'kayanov. Moshe and Aaron who were Kayhanim. So you see that the verse says, in the verse at least, Moshe was not a Kohen like you have a pulpit rabbi and a rabbi. Moshe was not the pulpit Kohen. It was Aaron. But he was considered in the verse as a Kohen. So he was considered.
The Tehillim overrides the words of the Torah.
Tehillim is part of Torah. What do you mean?
So it overrides the
five. Override. I don't like the word override. I don't know what you're talking about. Override. You don't override anything. Moshe, the Tehillim doesn't override. Well, before he was an openly Kohen. He was the first 7 days. He was a Kohen. But ultimately, he was considered in the pasuk. He was considered a Kohen. You don't see that he was not considered a Kohen, etc. in the pasuk. It doesn't override. I don't know what the word override. The pasuk comes to tell you what the Torah considers Moshe Rabbeinu, at least in the verse. So Moshe Rabbeinu was not a practicing Kohen because he wasn't. Aaron, his brother, was the practicing Kohen. But Moshe Rabbeinu in the verse was considered a Kohen. The truth is that if you go to the verse, there's a verse that says the entire Jewish nation are Kohanim. That we all Kohanim. So in a way, Siddur says that you're actually all, in a certain way, we're all Kohanim. We're all Kohanim. We're all Leviim. We have within us all these three entities. In a practical, you're not. But in the verse, in the spiritual, you have within you all these three entities of Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. That's why when there's no when you daven today, Siddur says when you pray today, you are the Kohen, the Levi, and the Yisrael. You're all three in one package. Because in the verse, so to say, in the Torah, you are the Kohen, are the Levi, and the Yisrael in the practical. Right? Everything has its source, and everything has its practical. Everything has its light, and everything has its vessel. In the practical, you self-understood you're not a Kohen. You might not be a Kohen, you might not be a Levi. You're a simple Jew, which is also wonderful. But in the theory, in the essence, you're actually all three. And the truth is, your neshama might have been a Kohen, Levi, in Yisrael, right? Your neshama through the journey of life, right? Could have been a certain time in his journey a Kohen, certain time in his journey a Levi, certain time in his journey a Yisrael, because my neshama has gone through many Jews from the beginning of history.
Isn't there an order when you called up to the Torah?
Yes, so the Kohen's called up first. Right. So maybe my neshama was once a Kohen. My neshama was once a Levi, and my neshama was once a because every person has their journey. So look at Moshe in text number 12. Moshe Rosenbaum, Levit Chain, he writes as follows on page 188. We can divide misguided people in two categories. There are those who seek out the logic of a mitzvah, but so long as they do not yet understand it, they view it as odd and ridiculous, God's command. Only once they understand the reason will they accept it and act accordingly. This is a wrong-headed way and foolish behavior. But nonetheless, the wise King Solomon advised, answer a fool according to their folly. The reason being, lest they be wise in their own sight, saying, I am wise, I am sophisticated about each mitzvah. I do, unlike those who blindly believe everything and who do not understand what they do. So that's one way. Answer, okay, give him time. He'll ultimately, or her time, give him or her time. Ultimately, they'll come to their senses, right? Because they're logical people. However, there's another much worse form of corruption, where they question the logic of a mitzvah, intending only to destroy the practice of the mitzvah and mock them. You can find, trust me, you can find the illogic of every mitzvah. It's not a very difficult thing, right? Why do Jewish people walk around with boxes on their heads? What are you people, Martians or something? What are you people, crazy? Like these guys are in Michigan, walking with a box in your hand, a box in your head. Like normal people do such kind of things. Like it doesn't make any sense. If you really want to make fun of any mitzvah that you do, right? We can make a joke of anything that what Jews do. We can make a joke of everything. Almost. You can make a joke of a lot. A lot of stuff. Like you can make a joke of Kayanim. Oh, look at these things. They're driving them crazy. Kayanim, Levim. So like it's so crazy. Like why do you need all this stuff? We can go down the list. We take a chicken and go overhead. We fast. We walk around without shoes. We're going to fast. All these things that we do. Okay. We can go on and on and on. I can make jokes of everything. We had once here a guy, a comedian, making jokes of, you can make jokes. It's like a lot of crazy things that Jews do, right? Don't talk and washing our hands and not talking and everything that we do is a bit of sugar, right? They present their challenges as innocent questions only to hide their intentions from the question, posing a deceptively as they were inquiring about the reason for a mitzvah. The wise King Solomon trusts us to discern the intention of a challenger. When we understand they come to deceive, seeking only to excuse and to justify themselves, the verse says, do not answer a fool according to their folly, for it will do no good and will only mock your words. That's how are you going to answer that? Oh, wearing a box makes sense. How are you going to answer that question? It was funny when we were building the mikveh over here. So the way the mikveh is built is a one hole on top of another hole. It's one bird, one cistern under another. Underneath is another one. So I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy kind of. So who built it? It was a bunch of non-Jews who were building this. Like they were saying, "What the heck is going on over here? Are you guys hiding something underneath over here? Like, why in the world are you guys doing this? Like, it's crazy. You're creating. Like, what are you guys hiding underneath there? Like, is this where all the one guy told me? Is this where the Jews hide their money?
No, just the jewel.
Like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is crazy, and because it's very hard to do it, to do this concept. It's not an easy thing to do, even just to the architect and the engineering and the actual pouring of the cement. It's crazy. And a guy, this guy, it's a nice guy. He says to me, "Did you guys hide the money underneath there?" He meant it serious. Is this your bank account or bank vault? And he meant it serious. He wasn't there to laugh. He just was amazed at this whole thing. He thought it was an amazing concept. He couldn't grasp it. What are you guys doing? Okay, that's interesting, So King Solomon says these two verses because he trusts that every person can understand when the person is asking the question and when the person is asking to laugh at the situation. You should be able to discern, right? So therefore, he warns, do not answer a fool according to their folly, for it will only do no good, and they will mock your words, lest you become like them. Warns that you will only be burned by their tongue flames and trapped snares of their mouth. So the text number 3, Rabbi Shimon Madar, he says as follows, and then we come to the, oh wow, we're late to come to the end of this class. It's better not to answer his or her folly and doubts. The reason being, least you become like them. This means you too will appear to be uncertain, trying to resolve their doubts. Because ultimately you're going to say, I don't know, why are you doing this? The fool's entire purpose is to create the perception that you too are doubtful. Then they will win the point that you are just like them. Thus, your lack of response will harm their cause more than the answer that you could say. Better, don't answer. That's it. If you answer their query and expose their mistake entirely, it would indeed harm their cause, but they still gain legitimacy from the fact that you answered their question as if they were onto something. This demonstrates that there's a legitimate question you must answer. The moment you refuse to reply, the court suffers more. Let me put this guy's on. The court suffers more because I lost my place. Suffers more, for they are unable to achieve the aim of their argument, to demonstrate that you too have doubts. This is what it means, so to silence the fool. Here is your answer. If as the person asks, am I right? And your silence tells him you're wrong. Still, despite having said not to answer the fool according to their folly, the wise King Solomon continues, answer a fool according to their folly, lest they be wise in their sight. He means you must answer them in a way that they can no longer believe themselves to have been wise. They must find themselves at a loss for an answer. To accomplish this, answer them lightheartedly. But the point is to expose their foolishness, not to lend to the argument credence. So you answer them, you want to be foolish. You're asking a stupid question. Let it stay a stupid question. I don't have to answer every stupid question. And that's why the truth that the Tanya Ost says, when it comes to your own Yetzirah, sometimes you have to, when he laughs, laugh with him. That's what you're looking for. He'll laugh with you. You make a joke, I'll make a joke too. You find a discrepancy, I can find a discrepancy. That doesn't change the point. I don't base my relationship with God that there's no discrepancies, there's no challenges, or there's no whys. That's not my relationship with God. That is not a question, or there's not a doubt, or there's not a challenge. If I had that relationship, I wouldn't have a relationship, because there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of doubts, and there's a lot of challenges, and that's life. To go through the doubts, to go through the questions, to go through the challenges, and not to have to answer on the spot every challenge, every doubt, and every situation. But to realize that as the journey goes on, these challenges and these doubts and these struggles will also dissipate, will also come to an answer one day, Be'ezrat Hashem. And that's the way you need to answer your doubts. In essence, that's what the Rebbe says. That's the lesson from this. Yeah, relationship with Hashem, even relationship with each other, right? Even relationship with each other. Yeah, anything. You have to know when a person asks you a question about anything, maybe why is he asking the question? What is he trying to implant in you? When, for example, when you hear lashon hara, for example, why is the person telling you this? Right? You had this person in high esteem, and now somebody's trying to undermine this situation, right? Somebody's trying to undermine. He's coming to you with a lashon hara, telling you, "Oh, this guy that you think is so great." I'm going to tell you a juicy tidbit. What is this guy trying to do? He's trying to make things better. He's trying to make that person better. No, he's trying to undermine something over here. He's trying to undermine the relationship. He's trying to break something. So therefore, the best thing is to say, I'm not interested. We're not here to break another person. I'm not interested in involving to break another person, to destroy another person, and not to, if anything, positive. That's a fool. So then you have to walk away from such a situation. That's what the best thing is. As we started the class, sometimes the best thing is to be silent, not to answer. Moshe Rabbeinu realized Zimri knew the answers. He was not interested in the answers. He was interested in the mocking of the situation. And therefore, he walked away from it. He didn't respond. And that's the lesson. It's a beautiful lesson. I wish you all a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless you all. And we should only hear good things.
Amen.